So I think this might be a longer video, and it's a continuation on the last couple of videos, last few days maybe even. So today is day 14, I'm pretty sure. And I want to talk about, expand on this thing I started on the topic of why not to ask the question why without giving your own why first. So you give your own why, like why you're asking the why question, whoever you're asking it, right? Because it's kind of, it's fair play, it's you reveal yourself, and that's fair, therefore. Otherwise you're asking someone else to reveal themselves without you revealing yourself, so that's kind of holding your cards close to the chest but wanting to see theirs. So just think of a game, card game metaphor. But also, and I'm gonna pause, also because why is like such a huge question in a way, and if someone's asking you why you are doing something, like how long have you got? So by explaining yourself first, as in why you're asking the question in the first place, the person knows what exactly you are, you have narrowed down the themes and topics that the why is about, and you can then address far more efficiently their question. So that's another reason. I'm not sure if I actually explained it in the last video. So 6 or so months ago, I had conversational exchange. It wasn't really live conversation. It was like back and forth from messages, and with someone I love dearly and I want in my life for the rest of my days, in a good shape relationship connection. It's not there yet. Yeah, I'm doing everything on my part to make that a reality in its own time without forcing, even though in the past I would have forced many times. So they came to me with many whys, like why do you do this, why were you like that, why did you say that? And although we have a long history, it's kind of like the intimacy is there, and it's not as intrusive from them to ask me that. We have, like I say, already an established connection, however wonky and unhealthy, because it's long and where we were both younger and therefore far less evolved, both of us, and whatever. And but like 6 months ago, I was more than ready to talk to them about it, like I just have been, in those couple of videos. And the essence of that was that essentially every question you have for someone else is a question for you. It really is. It's like that's what it is. It's disguised as a question for someone else. But really, you should get into practice of, even if it's like post factum, like after the fact, right? You've done it and then you go, okay, it's actually really, I should be asking myself, and turn the question back on you. You'll find so much more material and healing as you work through that material. It's a miracle. It's miraculous. It's so powerful. So my kind of what I came back to them with was that all the times, the reason I'm not going to answer is partly because sometimes not answering is the answer. So the silence is the answer, because I have nothing, I haven't articulated yet what I feel I could tell them. And this is, like I say, because it's someone I actually deeply care about, to have a, lifelong relationship. So I do want to have those kind of conversations, but they need to be, again, healthy. Like I need to own my part in that conversation. So don't dump my crap on them. Again, in disguised as if it's their crap. So that's essentially the piece why it's taken me, and there are still areas that I still am holding back on and not bringing it to them for a discussion, for any kind of exchange. However much I don't believe in exchanges, but there is, once you master this piece, that actually whatever you're bringing is just you, without expectation of even being understood, but without expectation for anyone to solve whatever it is that you're sharing, because you got it. So it's taken me this long, and the silences were because I was figuring out what part of, and it's pain related, like heartache, related like hurt, upsets, guilt, shames, all the rest of the crappy shit that we carry in our relationships. I was figuring out what part of that is me and what is theirs. And you can never know for sure what if, even if at a point you arrive at a point where you kind of, okay, I've done this work, I know now what's mine, what's theirs. You're not 100% sure. This is the time to then engage, but clearly defining. So this is my stuff I've worked through, you might want to share, but this I still think it's on you, and therefore, I need you to look into, address, because I can't move past it, because it's like a big obstacle to our healthy connection and good, supportive, mutually supportive and loving connection, right? So that's why, for instance, I was saying to them, like, that's why I'm not answering those whys, not yet, or I haven't, because they asked me in the past and I kept ignoring it, or rather didn't, respond, which is why they came back to me a bit irate and like, oh, what's going on here, you're ignoring me and all the rest. And then, but essentially, the last piece I left them with was that all those questions they're asking me are the ones they need to be asking them. So one kind of example was, they said, like, why are you so hard, like harsh, kind of like something like that. And my question then to them was like, well, I don't know why you think I am that. Do you see the difference? Do you see the subtle, powerful difference that makes all the difference in your own happiness, contentment, authenticity, life, who you are, all those good stuff that we all, I presume, well, I do presume that most of us actually really want in our life, to feel like this life is our own life. We don't live it by anyone else's standards. We don't live it to meet anyone else's expectations. So if this all sounds like you, then those questions like, why have you been like that? Why are you like that to me? Is really a question to yourself to say, why do you think that person is being that way? Meaning, why do you find their way, maybe scrap this last example I gave you. This essentially, you need to ask yourself why you think and feel someone is a certain way with you. Like, why do you think that? What makes you conclude that they're that way? What makes you believe that they're that way? And just a brief kind of skeleton type of structure, why this most likely is like a generic that you can hang your own bits and specifics of your own content on. This structure is that essentially your belief system is set up in a way that you go, when someone raises their voice like this, or when someone looks at me in a certain way, or when someone has a body language in A, B, or C or whatever, it means A, B, or C. Oops, sorry. So do you see what I mean? It's all you're doing. You are deciding that their behavior means this. And I tell you, from like, I'm 51, okay, not from the zero age, but yeah, let's say at least 4 decades, well, more than that, I'm acutely aware of how false this is, how flawed this way of understanding each other is. There is no, it's like countless times, endless, just infinite number of times I've experienced either that I've felt like this, or the other, I can sense the other person, or I actually arrived eventually at a conclusion that this was the case. And this thing I'm referring to is that my understanding and interpretation of what that person meant or said, what they meant when they said whatever or did whatever, was not right. And it was really how I chose and kept choosing to interpret certain ways. And I'll just give you the last piece. I said it was going to be a long one. I can't see the time. And this has come from probably one of, even dearer person in my life. And I'll say this is my mother. Excuse me. For years, I thought that she was kind of like, she didn't want to hear me. She didn't want to, she was dismissive of so many of my ways when I wanted to, I wanted her to ask me more. I wanted her to show interest. And in something, but because I knew, and that's a fact. I mean, she would agree with this, that whatever there was wasn't her thing. It's not like her or whatever. So I thought it was because, unless it's like her, she doesn't show any interest in whatever, was my kind of tripping thinking for decades as a child and young one. Only to like some 10 years ago, maybe 20, maybe 15, maybe 15, we had a conversation and literally kind of just came as a side comment, as a side point. And she just said, and I brought it up in a light way, non-accusatory. By that point, I was clean of all that stuff. But it was just, I can't remember what context. But she basically said, "Oh, I just didn't want to pry." Even now, when I say it, I just feel like my heart opens up. It's like that's all it was. She was actually respectful. That was her way of respecting me, because she just didn't want to poke too much. It just, I was a young girl, teenager. This was probably around my teens and onwards. Well, anyway, and she just kind of, respected, so she didn't want to ask more questions. She didn't want to put me in a position I have to explain more. And my God, it was like, that's kind of like how it's, those precious moments in our life when we have these lessons that we know are true, these things that I just shared with you in the however many minutes. You know it's true. We just kind of like, you don't have necessarily an exactly neat example of how it is, how this is true. And that was that moment in my life. And I was like, wow, it was just so revelationary. Anyway, can't think of how you say this properly. But yeah, so that's it. I hope there was a lot here for you to consider and digest and then implement. See you tomorrow.